Couple of questions. I'm going to go over those with you. I've spoken with the attorneys. As far as your questions 1 and 2 about emails and deleted emails and straight talk charges and whether a travel CPAP machine was ever found, the evidence is closed. You have received all the evidence. You will not be receiving any additional evidence. If that evidence was provided for you or not, y'all have as much information as you're going to receive. Same thing with 3, except that information on the device and pings for Google should be in the information you have. So if y'all want to write down a note to try to further ask that information, it may be that you can't tell because the ID hides the phone number or what the device is. I believe we took up that information outside your presence, and it may not have been explained to you, but you have what you have. As far as your question about the AT&T and Verizon tower data, there's a reason that has not been provided to you. It's somewhere around 2,400 pages of data. It was provided to the expert. It was admitted and tendered into evidence. It was not presented to you. I've asked Ms. Frankish to pull it up, and she's going to just kind of show you what it looks like on the screen. So for which one is this one, Ms. Frankish?
AT&T.
So that's what an AT&T tower dump looks like, which is why it was given to an expert, and the expert provided analysis and gave that analysis to you. But that's what the raw data looks like.
And then the Excel worksheets are Verizon towers.
So Verizon puts it in a format that you can decipher somewhat more.
And is broken down by their towers near the house.
So would you like to peruse that anymore, or do you have any other questions about it? It does exist, so it is on your evidence log, but you were not actually, I don't even know if you were actually shown the raw data, but it was provided to the expert testified about it. All right. You need a notepad? Yeah. Here, just give him you can't have one of mine because they have stuff. Just grab a blank. Now, as far as the phone call, we have the phone call with Rusty's interview with Pope. We have that queued up. We believe that the call that y'all are asking for in 1 and 3 are the same. If not, we have the full call pulled up between Melody and Rusty. That is about an hour long. Is that what y'all want to listen to? And do y'all want to listen to the full hour? And do you want to listen to it now or later? That's fine too.
You got to repeat it.
This is right. Y'all can huddle up and talk and decide what you want. There was a jail call where he talked to her again. Right? Is that it? Yeah, you come over. Yeah, you come over here. gonna let y'all huddle up and see if y'all can clarify what you're wanting, and then we'll see if we understand it. Next one of these, we're gonna have a foreman and a secretary. The secretary is going to keep track of the information for the jury as far as evidence goes. Like we do for grand jury. And we can also pull up the call that we think y'all are talking about, play a portion for it, and then y'all can confirm if that's what you want to hear. So there's a lot of information here. The raw data, we believe there was testimony as to the raw data, but what y'all received was a summary with slides of that, and y'all should have that in your, somewhere in your evidence. What's the witness name number?
It's Harris 6.
Okay, so we can do that. We have, because y'all have we have a copy of the index that we gave y'all somewhere around here. So if y'all have an issue like that, but again, you can say, can you tell us, you can give us in writing, can you tell us where this report is, or this document is, or this photograph? And that might be something we can get together, answer for you, and send back in writing to you what the exhibit number is. I know it's difficult. That's why we put the index together. All right, we believe we know our belief is that the other call you're wanting is the hour-long phone call. We'll play that for you in its entirety, and then if there's another call you want, we will play that. Do you want to do other stuff before you listen to that? We're going to do the Pope interview now. if you want to discuss some other things before y'all listen to the call for an hour, or if there's something else you want to review, and then review that at the same time.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go ahead and call.
Go ahead and, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and play the interview, and then we'll play the call. All right? Yeah, we need to flip. Thank you.
Now, for the record, this is bar number 1. I started at 1 hour and 28 minutes and 5 seconds, and going to end it at 1 hour, 41 minutes and about 3 seconds.
Replay. Now, if there's a portion that you want, if there's something that you want replayed while we're doing it, just raise your hand and tell us. One thing I will say just in general is that although we have the ability to replay this evidence and these conversations, we don't have the ability to replay the other testimony. And there is a concern that you will then place more weight on certain things because you hear it more than once. But I will allow y'all to do that if you need it, if it helps you in going through the evidence. But I want to caution you that it's up to you to determine the comparative weight of the evidence and what you think is more or less important, and you should not place additional emphasis on something that you've heard more than once. All right? All right, Mr. Fogus, go ahead.
He's a very loyal person. And it's taken us some time to get here, but in the interest of self-preservation, you know, you can either be in the witness box or you can be at the defense table. He was ready to talk about that conversation. But I asked him this before, leading up to that conversation. Had she ever indicated anything to you? Had she ever asked, had she ever given you any inkling or any indication that she intended to do him harm?
No. I have never heard that. I promise you, I have never heard that.
Okay.
Before we start this, do you have any questions for me about anything?
No.
Can I just say a couple of things to you?
Sure.
It took us a while to get here, but nevertheless, that's just part of the business, and I want you to know that I understand your loyalty. And as I was telling him, it's quite refreshing because that's not present that much. But we did come up here for a purpose, and we came up here for this moment because not only do we believe it's a proper investigative technique, but we believe it's in your best interest. And as these things move out, sometimes they get ugly. And I think this is a situation that it might benefit you just to tell us about that. Also, I wanted to let you know what I told your lawyer, that I'm putting my name on the line too, because that's how confident I am in you and about what you're going to tell us. Okay. And through this process, we're not going to do anything to surprise you. And we kind of view this as you coming on our side of the table. Okay. And it may be uncomfortable, but I think it's something that needs to be done for yourself.
I think a reluctant witness is a truthful witness.
I would say that's a very strong and accurate statement. So at this point now, do you mind if to take a phase and ask you? Okay.
Okay. Are you prepared to? I feel the best way to do this would be just to let you tell us what you want to tell us, and then if we have any questions at the end to fill in.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Well, you don't remember when the call was, but you remember the call.
Yes. I couldn't tell you. I honestly could not tell you the number of calls, the length of the calls, the time of the calls.
Okay.
Would you like some?
Well, would you like to just start?
I think a lot of this, I will tell you that I think a lot of y'all's trouble getting out of him is he's testifying from memory, and y'all know the details of his life.
I understand that. So I don't think we actually need to go through the time. I think because I don't want you to think we're putting you in a situation where we're trying to trip you up at this
No.
point. Is that accurate?
Absolutely
sir?
not. Absolutely.
I want you to.
Right.
Could you
So-
maybe diagnose the first call that would be an interest to us, not the time or anything about what
I
happened?
think there was only one conversation that is what you're looking for.
Okay.
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 And it was the last conversation.
Okay.
And
Would it be safe to say there wasn't much talking after that?
no, that was the end of the
Okay.
conversation.
Okay,
And
so,
is that the last time you've spoken with her? No,
No,
we
but I
just
talked to her. I talked to her I talked to her every day. But again, every day was just
yeah.
every
So-
day.
So when that, let's talk about that conversation that you feel was.
Probably the last minute of the last conversation, she said, Gary is in the burn pile. No, she said, he is in the burn pile. And I said, what? And she said, he's in the burn pile. And I said, do not say another word and do not tell me anything. I do not need to know.
Okay.
And that is everything, period.
That you discussed with her.
Period.
She didn't say anything about.
Nothing before,
else?
nothing since. When I talked to her after that, it was, it was just like it was portrayed to y'all. We're looking for Gary and.
Did she say? Okay, so there was we ain't gonna get into times, but there was a couple phone calls that. There was a couple of phone calls that was later than usual for y'all that night. Did she say anything about anything that was going on inside the house that night? Nothing between her.
I mean, no. I mean, like I said, what we talked about, and I could not tell you any specific, other than the horses were out, and
She did tell you that.
yeah, that she had been out after the horses, and
Now I know
You think that's why was that her excuse for calling you that late?
probably she was up, she was awake, yeah. I mean, I didn't think anything about any of it until she said that, and then that's when I said,
So I want you to know, though, I don't want you to think I'm tripping you up. If there's anything else you know, this statement that you just gave us, in my opinion, is very damning for her. So there's no reason in holding back at this point.
No, then that's what this last.
if I'm going to give an ounce, I'm going to give a pound. That was
Okay.
all of it.
That was all.
That was everything that she said that had anything to do with whatever happened.
But that's pretty. I mean,
And I don't
you
know
got to admit
what
that's pretty
happened.
good.
Yeah.
I don't know when happened or what happened.
And here's the thing:
but
at the
that
time that statement was made, you got to remember he wasn't even reported as missing.
I agree with you.
Right.
Me and him's gonna step out and talk.
Yeah, sure.
1 second, okay.
Y'all
One,
want
I
us to
want you
step?
to know I appreciate. No, we're fine with. I appreciate us getting to this point, though. I'm gonna step outside and talk to him real quick.
I mean, that's your.
Just for the sake of attorney and client, our recorders are still going.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of people up here that wouldn't have reminded me of that. I mean, did you freak out? You freaked out. Yeah.
It was like,
A surreal.
yeah.
I've had things in this business that happened to me, and while they were happening, I thought this can't really be happening. Kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't, I was like, what?
We're not holding back at this point.
No, that's it.
That's enough.
Well, that's it. That's all there is.
I mean, did you feel like any of this was built in? Looking back on it, those conversations.
No. No, I didn't see that coming at all. And literally when the TBI showed up, I was just in shock because I was like,
That would have been a couple of days after that.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been if she talked to you on Wednesday morning or Tuesday night, and they showed up at Friday
Friday
afternoon.
The one for that day. Do we have specific ones for that day?
Yeah, I'll explain it. You just say which ones you want.
You explain it to me.
All right, so we'll go into specifics. I know you don't remember. Maybe this will help refresh your memory, okay?
And I want you to know we're not trying to.
We're not trying to-
hammer in the specific time because sometimes it gets muddied up in it. And out of curiosity, were you actually on Tylenol PM or anything like that? You were. Okay.
And Crown.
And what?
Crown Royal.
Okay. Would you say you were intoxicated?
Probably had been,
Were you groggy?
yeah.
So that day there was.
But I think he wants to make clear to y'all that this was pretty much the last thing in the conversation that was said.
That was-
so he would have had time to.
But I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to say you're lying, because we're trying to build this foundation of trust, because we have had situations where we kind of caught you in.
Well, and they don't want to get surprised at trial. They don't want some lawyer picking up something that. And
Well, y'all want them to play the whole thing, is that right? Or no?
I think so.
Okay, all right.
Just for the
All right,
record,
that's all y'all want to hear? Okay.
I stopped it at 1 hour, 37 minutes, 3 seconds. 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 3 seconds.
Okay. And then our conversation over here about the other phone call, we believe this is what y'all want. So, you got it?
Wants to play the other one?
Yeah.
We only had one for that take, right? 58 minutes and 52 seconds. Here he goes.
Who, Bobby?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Got him. He talked to him and called me back, said he talked to him.
And?
He said he basically told Bobby that he was a much better attorney than him and it's a scare tactic, and we'll let it go at that.
Well, he said, Melody, if they were going to arrest him, they would have done it then. They don't come up and tell somebody they're going to arrest you. Which is true. I mean, when you wrap your head around it, that's true. And he said, Melody, if they can't arrest him, the TBI is going to have to go. He said, somebody from there has.
They said that. They said that I would be arrested here, and then they would have to take me, extradite me to Georgia.
Right.
So, like Bobby said, then it hit the news here in Chattanooga and Nashville, and,
Right.
that's the first thing that's going to happen.
Okay, I don't know whether he told him this, but Manny said that you all need to get any information that proves that you were in town at that time. I said, well, that they had already gotten from a grocery store that you had been at. They had gotten the footage there because they even knew what you bought. He said they need to. He said because we're getting to the 30-day mark now, and he said it's going to roll off. He said you all need to get that footage and anything else that would prove that you were there. Not somebody's word, but a proof that you were in town.
Okay, I'll tell him that.
Do you know of anywhere else that you were besides Food Line?
Well, they've got a list that Bobby has a list of my credit card statements, baby.
Okay.
He's got a list of where I was at. I wrote down and made up a timeline, per day of where I was, who I talked to, that kind of stuff. That
Right.
from Monday to Thursday of that week, and Bobby has that.
Right. Right. Okay. So I didn't know what all he told him, but
I don't know. I don't know what he told
I
him.
don't know, but I have been right. But I've been upfront.
Fucking dying.
I know you are. So am I. So am I. But he said, Melody, think about this. He said, I know both of you all are freaking out. He said, but Melody, we were in your house. Nothing was glowing. They don't have anything. He said, it's a scare tactic. He said, I've got the report. There's nothing there, Melody. I said, okay, I said, I haven't seen the report. I don't,
That's all they were talking about was putting all on, on things, and that it had been,
apparently been cleaned up, you know. Like, I'm thinking, baby, did you get it cleaned up? Is it cleaned up? You know, and then it's like, okay, he's been shot. You know, where's the gun?
Right. I asked Manny, I said, Manny, do you have a report from the GBI yet that says that he was shot? He said, nope, they're not turning it over. He said, so that makes me think that it's a lie too. He said, remember, they will lie to you. They will lie to me. They will lie to everybody. He said, Melody, and I tell you, there's no gunshot. There's no gunshot.
And you know that.
I know that. Manny said, Melody, they are lying to you. So, what did they show Bobby any pictures today?
Yeah.
Do you know what that it was of?
It was the ones of the looked like just walls. I mean, all I could tell was walls. I couldn't say, you know, I mean, it was like a picture of a wall, you know, that had shit sprayed on it. I mean, I couldn't. And then there was a picture in like ashes of a, you know, a bone that had a bullet in it.
Right. And I told him, I said, he said, did, right. He said, did they leave anything with Bobby? Do you know if they left anything with him?
I have no
Copies
idea.
of anything?
I don't know whether I'm coming, going, or done went.
I know you don't.
I don't.
Did they show them to you?
What?
Copies of these pictures?
Yes, that's what I said. I saw a picture of a wall, or a couple of pictures of, you know, a wall or walls.
Right.
And the stuff sprayed on, and then had a black light on it. And
Okay.
floating.
Okay.
Also have
I'll have that. He said that more than like he said, do you know anything about this Bobby Carter? I said, I don't. And he said, do you know if he's trained to look at that to know that what they're showing him is the truth? I said, I don't know that either. He said, Melody, they will also show pictures that have been altered. And they can do that. It's not illegal for them to do that. He said, but Melody, remember, I had my investigators in there. There's nothing in that house. I said, I know that. I do know that. He said, I've got the report. Melody, there's nothing in there. I said, I understand that. He said, okay, then. Of course, he was like, I said, look, I don't do this. This is not my forte. That's why I'm calling you.
Which is exactly what I told them. It's like, y'all, I don't know what the hell this is all about. You know, I've never been in this position before. You're asking me questions about shit I don't know.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Said,
he said he wanted to know. He said, why did...
You know,
right. He said, why did he get an attorney? I said, why did he get an attorney? I said, well, his wife was a court reporter, and he had lots of friends who were attorneys in town, and I said, he did not talk to them without a lawyer. And he said, okay. That was what, he was trying to get the whole, wrap his head around everything. He said, but first of all, he said, how long did they stay? And I said, about 2 hours. And he said, Melody, I said, look, you can tell me all day long it's a scare tactic. He said, but I'm telling you how that they would have worked. He said, all they're doing is to try to get him to say something. Where are you at now?
I'm sitting in the Planet Fitness parking lot with 9 million other cars.
Okay. When you've been to Martha Jane's house, did you take your truck over there?
Yeah.
See, she told me she told me this morning, she said, well, I might not should tell you this, that Rusty hasn't been coming in his car. He's going and borrowing somebody else's car to come to my house.
Now, see, that's not true at all. I have driven my truck over there every time.
Well, I knew you had yours over there the other time.
Yeah. Yeah. I pull right up front of the garage, just like always.
And I thought, well, surely you would have told me that
What
if
difference
you hadn't
would
been
that
taking
make?
your vehicle. I don't know, because she said you thought that you had been tailed over there, that you had a GPS on your truck, so that was why you weren't bringing your vehicle over there.
No, that's not true at all.
Okay.
No. You know when I've been there, and
Well, I do.
yeah, so there was nothing hid about me going and checking on Martha.
Well, were they in the same vehicle that they were in the other day?
They all look alike. Yeah, I mean it's one of them dark
Charger.
gray, blacked
Right.
out, you know.
Right.
Dark
Well,
silver.
the other day when they came, last Tuesday when they came, did they go all the way back to Chattanooga and then turn around and come back to Tullahoma?
I don't know.
See, Martha Jane told me, she said, well, they got all the way back to Chattanooga, that you had told her that they went all the way back to Chattanooga, thought of another question, and then turned around and came back and asked you that other question.
I don't remember whether that's right or not. I really don't. That could have been. I don't remember.
I didn't think that there was enough time that had elapsed for them to drive all the way to Chattanooga and back.
Yeah, me neither.
Manny, I'm interested to see what he's telling Amanda. But of course, Manny is going, because I told him, he said, are your two idiot sons still talking to him? And I said, I don't know, Manny. He said, you know that they've got Scott's phone bugged? And I said, I do. And I said, and we've tried to tell him that. And he said, I'm not going to say that, he said, but I think that they think that Rusty probably knows something and that they can scare him into telling you. And I said, but Rusty doesn't know anything. He wasn't there. There's nothing to tell.
No, they verified that. I mean, they verified that I wasn't there. The only thing they beat up on me on is those 3 phone calls.
Right. Right. He said, all they're trying to do is scare you all. I said, no shit. Well, they're doing a good job of it.
The whole thing was, did you tell her anything? Did she tell you anything? That basically is it in a nutshell. That, that night, those 3
It's
phone
what
calls.
that they just repeatedly ask you today.
Yep.
Well, he asked me, he said, what were the questions that they asked him? I said, oh, no, I don't know. I said that was basically our conversation with, hey, they had come and they had, and he said, did they leave a copy of that with Bobby?
That I don't know.
Well, that I don't know either.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what he said. They're trying to scare him. So I don't know what all he told Bobby, about, you not talking to him anymore or anything like that. He said, because the thing of it is he said, how long has he talked to him at each time? I said, oh gosh, I don't know. He said, they've got somebody who's talking to him and he's the only one that's talking. That's why they're coming back and talking to him. He said, because not any of us are talking to him.
Well, like I told him, I don't have nothing to hide.
Right.
I wasn't there. I didn't have nothing to do with it. I don't know what happened. I talked to her that night. Yes, she called me 3 times. I talked to her that night. We just talked. It was just normal shit. How did she have all that going on, doing all that, and all y'all are talking about is the horses and that kind of shit. I'm fucking scared.
Because there was
to death
nothing
now.
going on. Yeah. Because there was nothing going on.
I didn't tell her nothing. She didn't tell me nothing.
Yeah, because there was nothing going on.
My fucking eyeballs are running that plumb out on the stem, baby.
I know it. I know. I know you were scared to death, and so am I.
Like I told Bobby. But Bobby, I didn't do anything, so why? Baby, are you sure the house is clean?
Baby, there's nothing in the house. I'm telling you, there's nothing in that house. Manny took his investigator through that. We went through that entire house. There's nothing in that house. Nothing. I can assure you, there's nothing in that house. And here's the thing of it is, there was no gun. There was no gun.
What
There
makes you
was
so
no
sure
gun.
that the cops didn't find anything?
Because there was no gun there.
Well, I don't mean just mean gun. I mean anything, everything. I mean the whole, blood, whatever.
Because there was none. The two pictures that he says that they have, which they had them marked on the wall. I mean, you could see where that they sprayed everything. Technically, there was three pictures. There was one right inside my front door, because they had tape up, and you could see where that they had sprayed the wall. And it was like little sticky notes with like little numbers on it. And the marks are still there on the wall. I mean, they're very blatant. You could tell it's where somebody, like a dog, has come through and shook. I mean, they're tiny. I mean, we're talking the size of a lead in a pencil. Unless you don't see them on the wall, and if it hadn't been for the tape on the wall, I mean, the pinpointed, off, and you could see the stuff that they sprayed on the wall, to eliminate quote blood. Manny's guy came in. There's nothing there. They sprayed right up inside the basement door that comes up into my dining room. They sprayed that table. They sprayed the floor. They sprayed the door. They sprayed that. There's a piece that comes out. It's like a built-in cabinet and stuff there. They sprayed all that. They sprayed the floor. There was nothing on there. Nothing. Then they sprayed downstairs in the basement. There's a wall that separates, that kind of goes down there, where you go around and go down the hall to the bedroom and the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. And then there's it's like where the stairwell goes down. They sprayed that entire wall. They sprayed the bar top, and they sprayed the floor all down there. There's nothing on it, nothing illuminated. So that's what they're talking about. That's the three places that they're talking about. And there was nothing on it, because we were in there on Sunday. There was nothing there.
Was
I mean,
there
it's like they
anything
told
in
me.
the 3 phone conversations about any of that? You and I,
What their phone?
that night that they're talking about, that July the 3rd, that we talked 3 times,
Yeah.
which to them was so out of the ordinary.
No,
What did we talk about?
we talked about fucking.
Which is our normal conversation.
Which is our normal conversation.
And
The
I'm ready to
grandkids
get back
and
to
the-
it.
Yeah. And Ella and Addie were coming, and, I was going to Lake Lanier the next day, and, you were going up to the lake with Andrea. That's all we talked about.
And that's what I said.
That's all we talked about. but I honestly, in my gut feeling, I think that you are the only one that they've been able to, quote, talk to. They're not talking to anybody else, as far as I know. I mean, they could be talking to Chris and Scott every damn day, for all I know. But that's what I'm thinking, is that you are the only one that they're talking to, and they're trying to scare you into saying, hey, she did it. I mean, that's what Manny said. Do you trust him? I said, I trust him with my life. He said, then okay. He said, then...
Baby, do you know who did it? Who killed
No,
him?
I do not. No.
I mean, somebody killed him.
No. No.
Who could have done it?
I don't know. I mean, Chad said today, he said, Melody, Amanda and I on our way to go get pizza and coming home from getting pizza last night. He said, you know, we did it as outside person looking in, you know. He said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Scott did it. He said that there's too many peculiarities when it comes to Scott. There's too many. But Manny's right. You're the only one that's talking to him still. So I don't know whether he told Bobby not for you all not to talk to them anymore.
I haven't talked back to Bobby yet.
I had wondered.
Maybe, do you think if Scott did it, that would you have not heard it? Known it? I mean,
Okay, let me tell you this, and you tell me whether this is correct or not. Back some time ago, we had a goat that had to be put down. She had given birth. I had worked and worked and worked with her, and I finally got the little baby delivered, and of course it was stillborn. Well, she never really quit bleeding and, you know, whatever. And she was, I mean, you know, and Scott put her down. And he told me he was going to put her down. And I said, oh, let me leave. Let me, before you do that. I don't want to be here when you do that. Well, later on, he came over there and he said, well, I'm fixing to do away with that goat. And I said, you didn't put her down. He said, I walked up and put the gun right up to her. He said, in that way, there is no noise. True or not true?
I have no idea. I have never done that. So I don't know.
Well, we're not going to Google it.
No. No, I have never done that.
So that's what makes me wonder. Of course, now, on the flip side to that, there was enough fireworks and stuff going off that night into, well after midnight. And probably they were still going off at 1 o'clock in the morning. People shooting fireworks and stuff. Now, if I'm upstairs in, like, my, you know, the upstairs bathroom, you know, and stuff, you can't hear anything up there.
Well, do you know where you were when you talked to me?
Upstairs.
I was in bed. I know where I was at.
Right. No, because I had taken the sheets off of Ellen Addie's, the big bed up there, because when Emily and Amanda and them, when Emily and Chris and Olivia had been there, I had slept upstairs, me and the dogs had. So, and I had just made that bed back. And I had gone up there and had stripped off the sheets and had put clean sheets. I was putting clean sheets and stuff on the bed up there. Of course, I was nasty from being outside, you know, all day working and stuff. I had, you know, took a bath up there. I mean, you know, I vacuumed upstairs. All that kind of stuff. Of course, Manny still believes that there is no gunshot. He thinks that that's all coming from the fact that Scott told him there was a missing gun. Which Manny wanted to know. He said, have they asked in any of this time to see any of your guns?
No. They just asked if I knew that all of my guns were in place, and I said, yes, they are. And they are. I checked every one of them.
Right. He said if they had thought that there was a gunshot, he said they would be taking his guns and at least looking at them. I said, well, they're doing a good job of scaring the shit out of us.
I think that's true. I can't even fucking breathe.
So I don't think I breathed from the time that you
Good day
called
to
and
have your
said you were
heart
going
checked,
down.
isn't it?
Seriously. Hell, I think we're having ours checked on how did they end it? I'm asking all these questions so when I talk to Manny again that I can tell him what did they, Did they just get up and walk out? What did they do?
They said they would see me soon.
How were they dressed today?
Polo shirts.
Okay. Were they the Cherokee County ones?
Yeah, it's the same two guys.
Okay. Well, I didn't know whether they would have on just,
Last
What's
time
the Cherokee County
they
one?
had on suits. These were polo.
Right.
Oh yeah, they had like an embroidered badge, I guess, on their polo
Right.
shirts.
Right.
Stop. Hold on.
But like I said, Melody,
Yeah.
wanting that specific information, but it's on the call log, so you can show that. The portion of the phone call that I believe y'all want is later in the phone call, but we were going to play the whole call. So y'all want to keep listening to it? Or do y'all want to try to skip ahead to a portion of it? All right. Y'all want to? Oh, that's fine. Y'all can step out, and then when y'all are all ready to come back in, that's fine. Y'all want us to try to find that portion of the call? Okay. All right. They're interested in that specific portion that you played in your closing.
Well, the tractor's not the right word for it.
Just put on the record.
No.
All right, guys. So let's talk about what's going on here. Let's talk about it. So, what does it? I see some of you in comments are worried about what's going on here with this. I'm not. I don't necessarily think this really tells us much of anything, because I think if you look at others, almost everyone goes back to the Rusty conversation. So what that tells me is the jury is trying to figure out Rusty's credibility and whether or not that was to be believed. And I think when you're listening back to that portion of what we just heard, and it brought me back to the moment when I was listening to that, and I thought it was interesting because she was very convincing in the idea that she didn't think that there was actually a bullet, or that there was not actually gunshots, and that is something that could be a big factor in how they conclude this case and what they think is going on with the case. Because if they think that she actually didn't know he was shot, then we could have a complete not guilty straight down the line. So I don't look at this as anything saying one way or the other. I think that it's one of two things. It's either there's a couple of people back there that are saying, hey, listen to this, listen to Rusty's statement, he would have never been able to know this, and people are raising concerns and they're trying to play it back, for the purposes of trying to sway the people as to the credibility of Rusty and saying, see, because you could look at some of that in there as she's playing Rusty. that she's like trying to convince Rusty, like, I don't buy into the whole idea when he says, well, what were you doing there? And she says, well, it's 11 o'clock at night and she's up there sweeping and doing things. Now I could see her maybe getting the beds ready, knowing the grandkids are coming tomorrow. But it's a bit concerning when you hear that she might says, well, I was all dirty and nasty and I was trying to do that. Now, what I hear is I hear some elements of truth coming through here, because you have to remember too, these calls very well could have been staged, because you have to remember Rusty told her that he was recording. So they knew they were talking to the police. Now, at the same time, I think she was also trying to find out, is Rusty trying to set her up? So I think she would be feeding Rusty this stuff to try to throw him off her path, which again throws all sorts of I don't know. It just, there's all more elements of I don't know, because you've got Rusty there trying to ask her about what was discussed. You'd think that he would have been able to say, don't you remember saying this to me? Don't you remember saying that to me? Don't you remember this? This could have just been an outlier call because her grandkids were coming in. Her grandchild was in town and she was up late. The horses got out and whatever. And they really didn't talk about anything else. Now, I guess, you can almost hear that. I think the portion that they want to play back, that's the real nuts and potatoes of it, is somebody back in that jury room. And again, they haven't played it yet, but I think there was enough played that there was some enough for them to discuss. But remember, the part they want to play is the part where he says, don't you remember telling me he was on the burn pile? And she says something to the effect of, yeah, I remember saying that, or something like that. And that's what was played in the closing argument. So I think there's people back there. I don't know. It could be being played because there's 10 people back there that say they think it's all BS, and there's 2 people back there saying I'm not moving off of it. You got to hear that part. That's what makes me think that she said it. And that's what they're basing the credibility of the statement on. So they want to replay that section to determine whether or not the whole Rusty statement is BS. So I don't think you can say this is good or bad. This is where I think that is a big major sticking point. Marjorie Smith says, if you've been working in the yard in Georgia in July, you're going to need to clean up. Oh, no question. But I'm saying that she's talking about taking showers and stuff right after a time when we think she could have been shooting somebody. So that's not exactly helpful necessarily if the jury's looking at this and saying, well, she's talking about how she was all nasty and dirty. I absolutely understand. If you're in July, you're out in the yard working in West Virginia, you're going to be nasty and dirty, especially if you're on like a farm like she is. But I'm just saying, it's kind of not the thing you want to be talking about to say, yeah, during that time I was getting a shower and cleaning up, I was all nasty and dirty. Well, yeah, it could be because you were out there shooting your husband and rolling him down to the burn pile and you were all sweaty. That's what everybody thinks she was doing between 10 and 11. But I think there's a big debate back there in that jury room, just like there is out here, about whether or not she actually said it or not. And whether or not Rusty was making it up. And I think what they're saying is there's people back there that are saying it's not a debate. She admitted it. And then there's people saying, no, she didn't quite admit it. She said she didn't. And that's why they want it played back. So I guess we'll find out when they finally get that portion, because it's coming up. They're going to be bringing them back out once they find it. And then they're going to play it for the jury and we're going to get to hear it. And once again, we're all kind of get to make our own decisions on it. So, but I still believe, again, there's sections of this. She sounds very convincing to Rusty when she's talking to him about playing dumb on the gun, playing dumb on, oh, nothing happened. I'm telling you, nothing happened. And then she tells the story about this goat that was offed and you wouldn't have heard the gunshot. How would you have not known? Listen, she wasn't going to give it up. But one of the things that tells me she's working with Scott on this that I thought was telling in there was when she said, "We've been trying to tell Scott they're tapping his phone, but he's not listening." Here we
Exhibit
go.
that we started
Hold on.
playing prior to the brief break is Collio's number 4, State's Exhibit, which is a call from August 2nd, 2018. We played the first, and I did not write down the timestamp that we stopped it. It was about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. And now I'm playing it from timestamp 43:56.
Okay.
At the request of the jury.
We need to be on the same page.
Okay.
All right? And so I don't want to be confused. But I remember you telling me he's on the burn pile.
Mm-hmm.
Were you lying about Scott? Scott, I mean, you think what? You tell me what happened.
I can tell you that there should not have been as much damage as there was done.
I don't know what that means.
That body should not have been burned up.
So, who burned it up?
I think Scott did.
Okay.
I think Scott did. Like Amanda said, I think that that Scott had the perfect crime, the perfect whatever, the perfect,
Except you saw him there, so did you try to not get Scott in trouble?
No. I'm not covering for Scott. No, and I told them everything that I have just told you, that, because that's what they started in. You're covering for Scott. I said, look, I don't know anything, I saw Scott come in that night. He said, do you know if he had been there, I don't know, because I said, I don't even know what time it was that Scott came in. I said, because you've got my phone. So I don't know what time it is that I talked to Scott. He said, well, do you know what Scott did from the time he came home until, I said, because he called me about 6:30 the next day and said he was at the house and for me to open up the front door. And I said, I walked out front, and I said, I opened up the front door, and I said, then I went to my truck that was in the garage, got my debit card, and handed it to him.
Right. What I'm saying is that night, the 3rd, that we supposedly talked, so much, and you said he was on the burn pile. Were you just trying to cover for Scott, or what?
No.
Okay.
Now, I honestly don't know what Scott did or anything. I don't know. Do I have speculation? Yes, I do.
Okay. So, did you tell me that night, the 3rd, that he was on the burn pile?
I don't remember. I think all that I remember saying to you is that Gary has started the burn pile.
Okay. See, I don't remember. I was trying to put it all together, and that was what I was coming up with, but I don't remember what was said about Gary because I had had some drinks, and I had had some Advil PM, and, like I said, we talked normal stuff, and I listened, and
right.
it was kind of in and out.
Did you ever tell them that you had drinks and
Yeah.
Advil PM? Okay. Okay. Well, I guess the thing of it is, like Minnie said, don't give them any more information than, you know. Of course, they're not going to be talking to me. So that's the thing of it is, as Minnie said, he's the only one that's talking to him. Well, we think that he's the only one that's talking to him because not any of, you know, us are supposed to be, you know, talking to him. So, you know, he said that's why that they're, you know. Are you still sitting at Planet Fitness?
I am.
Have you driven back through town to, well, I would think if they'd shown back up that Bobby would have called you. Were they sitting in his office when you got there?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and stop. All right, anything
I'll
else?
just get 2 minutes just
Okay.
to make sure we're good.
All right, that's fine. Y'all step out and don't need something else. We'll stay right here.
All right, guys. So listen, I'm going to pull this comment up. So this is exactly what I'm saying. And this is, again, I don't know if it's going to fly right over the jury's head. And they're not going to care because they're going to look at it and say that she said the burn pile was started. But the expert, you're correct, Marjorie Smith, if you go back and you play back the testimony and you look at the defense, this was a state expert, said that the fire had only been started, no more than 24 hours before the 5th. So, you know, again, this is what I'm working back from. So if that's true, okay, then what Rusty's saying is garbage. What she's saying in that phone conversation is garbage, and they're all lying. And they're all manufacturing this conversation because Rusty's told her that she knows that they're on the that they're recording these conversations, and we can't discount that possibility that that's possibly what is happening here, because we know Rusty told her that he was taping her, and that their conversations were being taped. So this would have been a perfect time for them to clarify that statement, which is what they were trying to do, I think, which was to say that he didn't say he was on the burn pile. He said, or, you know, on the burn pile could have meant that he's out there starting the burn pile and starting it up. Not that he's on the burn pile in the terms that he's been burned up on the burn pile at that point, which doesn't make any sense that she would say that, even if that was the case. So we know that a burn pile happened sometime prior to the 5th, after the 3rd. What we don't know is when. Now, here's the thing. We know Gary had to have been killed on the 3rd or sometime into the, you know, late into the evening of the 3rd, early morning of the 4th. Again, there's a scenario that we could say. I mean, one of the things that the defense really pounded home on their cross-examination of Scott was how concerned Scott was and the family had become of Gary's love of burn piles, and how he had, you know, Scott was very stressed out when his father would play with fire. So what does that tell you? That tells you that could be a potential friction point between him and his father, that if Scott comes home to put the horses back, He talks to his mom. Mom says, I already got him back in, Scott. Scott's pissed off now because he's been dragged from the lake. And if Gary truly was starting a burn pile at that point, that could have been the place where this conversation, where this argument happens, and Gary ends up shot. It's also possible too that, again, Melody did this. Scott comes home, and together again, which is what I believe, that there wasn't a burn pile yet at that time, and that burn pile didn't get going until the next day. Now, I think Gary intended for there to be a burn pile. I think that Melody was, if anything, if Melody was mentioning that burn pile, it was because she was trying to lay down the, I guess you'd say, lay down the groundwork to making it seem like Gary fell in that burn pile, if that was what their plan was going to be, to dispose of the body. But here's the thing. This jury's listening to this. And I think, I mean, if you're listening to it like I'm listening to it, the problem we have right now is we don't know. And I don't think that comment, I think that if there's a juror back there that says, oh, that was a damning statement, I think everyone should hear and say, or should be thinking to themselves, how damning was that really? So there it is. Marjorie says, starting the burn pile means building it, not lighting it. Okay, there we go. Well, there it is. Scott says, Marjorie says, Scott was already pissed off because of the custom clubs he wanted, and Gary cut his money because he paid for Chris's family vacation. That's what I think too. I mean, there you go. That could have been an issue between them, that he went down to talk to him about that.
Okay.
And things got heated.
50.
All right, here we go. We're going back.
I can't get it to 56. I can't get it there.
Okay. No issue.
Listen to me. Okay.
Okay.
We need to be on the same page.
Okay.
All right. And so I don't want to be confused. But I remember you telling me he's on the burn pile.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, were you lying about Scott? Scott, I mean, you think what? I don't. You tell me what happened.
I can tell you that there should not have been as much damage as there was done.
I don't know what that means.
That body should not have been burned up.
So, who burned it up?
I think Scott did.
Okay.
I think Scott did. Like Amanda said, I think that that Scott had the perfect crime, the perfect whatever, the perfect, you know.
Except you saw him there, so did you try to not get Scott in trouble?
No. No, I'm not covering for Scott. No, and I told them everything that I have just told you. That, you know, because that's what they started in. You're covering for Scott. I said, look, I don't know anything. You know, I saw Scott come in that night. He said, do you know if he had been there? You know, I don't know, because I said, I don't even know what time it was that Scott came in. I said, because you've got my phone. So I don't know what time it is that I talked to Scott. He said, well, do you know what Scott did from the time he came home until, I said, because he called me about 6:30 the next day and said he was at the house and for me to open up the front door. And I said, I walked out front, and I said, I opened up the front door, and I said, then I went to my truck that was in the garage, got my debit card, and handed it to him.
Right. What I'm saying is that night, the 3rd, that we supposedly talked, so much, and you said he was on the burn pile. Were you just trying to cover for Scott or what?
No.
No. Okay.
Now, I honestly don't know what Scott did or anything. I don't know. Do I have speculation? Yes, I do.
Okay. So, did you tell me that night, the 3rd, that he was on the burn pile?
I don't remember. I think all that I remember saying to you is that Gary has started the burn pile.
Okay. See, and I don't remember. I was trying to put it all together, and that was what I was coming up with, but I don't remember what was said about Gary because I had had some drinks, and I had some Advil PM, and, like I said, we talked normal stuff, and I listened, and
right.
it was kind of in and out.
Did you ever tell them that you had drinks and
Yeah.
Advil PM? Okay. Okay. Well, I guess the thing of it is, like Manny said, don't give them any more information than, of course, they're not going to be talking to me.
All right. Anything else?
All right, before y'all break, I want to remind y'all that I told the lawyers, are y'all wanting to cut off at 4 too? All right, perfect. So, all right, y'all can be excused back to the jury room. Kind of got a little loosey-goosey there. Anyone want to have any objections to what we did?
I don't think it was a better way to do it.
All right.
I was going to say loosey-goosey now.
Okay. That's a legal term. All right. We'll be in recess.
All right. So listen, if we're going to have a verdict today, it's obviously going to happen in the next 32 minutes. And it's very possible if there were some jurors back there, the fact that they played that back 3 times, it's very possible we could be close to a verdict. We would be at about the 10-hour mark of deliberations. This would be, if they're close, I could see them coming back with a verdict within the next 20 minutes. But it would only be because that call settled something. Because again, there's probably a multitude of theories going on back there. I would imagine that they could be going, but this could also make them believe that she and Scott were in on it, that she's covering for him. I mean, there's the implication there in that, where she's saying Scott burned him up on the burn pile, and they're hearing it as she's admitting that she did it. Scott did the burning, she did the killing, and that's kind of how they're going to take that statement. It could also be, as I think, when you hear that, because I think one of the parts that they're probably really focused on, or at least that got replayed, was when he says, "Did you tell me that on the 3rd?" And then she goes back and says, "Well, I can tell you that he wasn't supposed to be as burned up." And some people, the prosecution tried to hold that out to be like, that's knowledge. It sounds to me like she was regurgitating something she heard from either law enforcement or a lawyer about um, in regards to that point. But that's something that was played in closing. It's something that the state is asking them to consider. And really, we're at the point, you're correct, Marjorie, that is all they have. Everything else is, I think, when they're sitting back in that jury room, they realize the physical evidence, it was not the best investigation. Everybody's got that feeling. This case started because of Rusty's statement. It's going to end on that. That's just how it is. Now, let's go back here. Someone said, who was it? Cheryl Reed, we'll go back to your comment. Scott murdered his dad over golf clubs. Don't be ridiculous. Listen, it's just Melody we could say murdered Gary if you believe she's the one that did it over Christopher Radko ornaments and over wanting to maintain her lifestyle. So it's the same difference. What you're failing to connect, Cheryl, is that both Melody and Scott were in the same financial position with Gary. So everything you can say about Melody, you can say about Scott in terms of how Gary treated Scott, in terms of the fact that Scott was financially dependent on Gary, that he had no independence from Gary, that Gary controlled him. And as you can see from some of his text messages, he didn't necessarily speak to Scott well. And what you have right now is Gary pissing the entire family off because Chris, known to have, again, and you saw the messages, I believe there were messages, I could be misremembering this, but I thought at some point there were text discussions even between Scott and his mom about Chris stealing money. But I know the whole family knew about those accusations. So in my opinion, that's not ridiculous. That could very well be what happens here, where they come down, Gary's at the burn pile, Scott comes home, he's a little bit upset because he's like, this is getting ridiculous. I'm called back for these horses. Mom ends up getting them in. This stuff's got to stop. Gary and him get into an argument, and he addresses his father and says, yeah, well, what about these golf clubs? I'm trying to get them. And Gary says, listen, son, no, it's not happening. And then Scott, he says, well, I understand but you're going to the beach with Scott. And they get into it. And one thing leads to another. And if he's down near the burn pile, boom, he's shot. Gary would be on the burn pile then. Doesn't mean the burn pile was started. It means he's down by the burn pile, on the burn pile, where everything is burned up. Hold on one moment. So, to me, that's what this comes down to. With both sides, understanding both sides, something had to have happened that evening. And then you could also have this conversation between Rusty and Melody happening over her saying Gary's down at the burn pile, and maybe she doesn't hear him shot. But the bottom line is what we also have to look deeper to, and this is the part that I think that, again, why she has to be involved. Okay. Someone's walking that phone around the property in the morning, and it ain't Gary, because we know Gary never wouldn't sleep without a CPAP. Okay. So that phone call that the jury's relying on and listening to, and everyone's listening to, I think it was staged. I think it was staged in a way for her to explain away Rusty's comments, because she was concerned that what Rusty had said would hang her, just like she told him at the jail. Said, you got to stop talking, Rusty. You're going to hang me. Because I think that's what they concocted when they weren't being listened to. And they said, all right, well, you call me, we'll start talking. Now, did they do it great? No. Did she answer great? No, but she kind of goes off. That's why I said that the answer when she says, he wasn't supposed to be burned up, I think she didn't necessarily quite understand what the question was at first or something. For some reason, it triggered her to say that. But then she goes on to explain the whole thing with about, well, he shouldn't have been so burned up. That just screams to me that that's either something she was told by law enforcement, something she was told by Manny, or something she was told by someone else. The morning the phone was walked around was on the morning of the 4th. It was starting. Melody calls Rusty in the morning at like 6 o'clock. She has a 30-minute conversation with him. Scott comes over, gets the debit card. Scott leaves. And we know that because they show that he leaves and ends up in another quadrant of the cell phone deal there. Goes to play golf. During that time, Gary's phone starts moving from the house to the burn pit and back, and then eventually makes it back. I don't know. It's kind of all over the place, but it eventually makes it back into the house. I think the defense attorney is making a good point, which is those things can sometimes not be pinpoint accuracy. But it was showing that the phone was moving all around the property. Now, it's possible. I've also had my phone. I mean, I've looked at it. At least when I'm looking at Find My, I've checked on my kids to see if they're home or whatever, and I'll see the damn dot like out in the yard, and I know they're not in the yard. They're in their room. Well, Marjorie Smith, she was with the girls in the evening. Melody, we're talking about in the morning on the 4th. From about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning until about 9:30, 10 o'clock. The girls were not there. She was in the process of agreeing to go to the beach with Amanda. Scott was golfing. And that's why I've said that indicator, again, this is what, when you look at these things that only certain people could have been present to do, unless there's a third party involved that we don't know. But if the only person on that property that's known to be on that property is Melody, and that phone's moving around, and we have to assume Gary is dead based on the lack of connecting to the CPAP, and she's up near where the burn pile is, whatever happened near the burn pile, she would be aware of. Whatever happened that previous night, she would be aware of. Now, this is why the jury, I think it's funny that they're focusing so much on Rusty. Because, see, you have to remember the jury heard all of this in like 15, 16, 17 days. And this is the difference between us having access to playing things back, replaying things, and being a juror who's been sitting on a case that went into a multi-week case. As a juror, you are required, and this is how they want juries to be, to have your present sense impression of the moment. And that's what you're supposed to rely on, nothing else. No external stuff, no hearsay, no other things, no playing it back multiple times. That's why the judge was admonishing and saying, we don't want you to put weight on the playback. We don't want you to trust the playback of this tape more than your impression of that witness when they were in the courtroom. So the way that jury is thinking right now is they're trying to figure out what to focus on. And clearly, a lot of this stuff that we've been able to see, we've been able to play this thing back. Some of this stuff I missed about the first time I watched it. Second time I watched it. A lot of you, there's things that we're talking about and I've seen that I didn't see that. I missed that the first time. This jury only sees it one time. And then they get to request things to play back. So right now, I think where this jury's at is to them, the case, I think in their mind, they're looking at it and saying, okay, well, how do we simplify this decision? It's, do we believe Rusty's statement or not? If we believe Rusty's statement, she's guilty. If not, she's not guilty. For some reason, the cell phone stuff didn't land, or at least it hasn't been requested to be played back. I thought that would be something that would be telling, but they haven't. And that's why, and that's what I think is a side effect of this long trial, and the fact that they have had a one-time opportunity to see the testimony, the evidence. They haven't seen the sidebars. They didn't get to see the cell phone analyst testify twice. Remember, the other thing that they have that we don't, they got to walk around that property. They have a sense of the property. They have a sense of what she would or wouldn't have heard. So they really do have a perspective that we can't appreciate because they've been there. It's viewing it totally differently than how we have, where we've been able to just replay things, redo things, talk about it, deliberate. I mean, all of us start deliberating on these cases the first day we watch them. It's happening in the comments. It's happening when I'm sitting here talking about it. And that's one of the reasons why they say when a juror's watching, they say, don't talk about it with anyone. Don't discuss it. Don't think about it. Just keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. And then you should only start to think about things and talk about things once you've seen the whole picture. And that's something that really is powerful in terms of how you view something. If you follow those instructions, it's good. You're going to have a different perspective completely than all of us who began deliberating this case the first day, who began making an opinion about the case the first day. And and one of the reasons why they say don't make a conclusion about the case is because you do what these investigators have done. You develop confirmation bias, and we all have it. We've all done it. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of it. That's why so many people get offended when we have differences, because they're sitting here going, wow, you view this. I know this. It was this, because you stopped analyzing the case after you heard Rusty. You stopped analyzing the case after you heard this. You concluded she was guilty, and you can't hear anything else. It's why when I'm watching these cases, I am trying to keep as open mind as I can. And that's why you're seeing evolution of my theories. You're seeing evolution of how I'm thinking as I'm talking about it, if I'm giving commentary on it. Sometimes I don't give commentary to the end of the case. A lot of times I'll do that because I don't want to sit and begin the process of drawing a conclusion too soon. Because if you do, you start to instead of trying to understand the case, you start to look for things to confirm what you've already concluded, and you miss stuff. And this jury, if they've done it right, they're deliberating now. They're listening to things. And it seems that one of the things that they're really believing has a lot of significance, which is whether or not Rusty is telling the truth, whether or not Rusty was making a mistake. And I think that if they take that out and these jurors conclude that statement is no longer credible, it's done. Well, they did request the cell reports, but I was thinking they might request a read back of the testimony. But I think that might have been maybe, and I might be mistaken. I couldn't understand what the judge was saying because he was talking about something about that they couldn't have certain testimony. So perhaps they were looking for that. Maybe the judge wouldn't let them do it because I know that the judge explained at the beginning of the case, which is kind of a little bit unique, that the court reporter doesn't produce a transcript during this, that I guess there is ability to watch some testimonies back. They could do like a review. So perhaps that was addressed when they were talking about it. But I did hear him saying that, and we don't know what records they were doing. But I think that this is coming down to, at least right now, it sounds like, given the fact they played it. Remember, they left. They came back and requested it again. And that was why the judge said, well, we kind of broke some rules. And the defense said, well, I don't think we could have done it any different. Because, there's concerns whenever you're playing things more and more for juries. Because what you don't want them to do is get too hyper-focused on that recording and say, okay, well, everything depends on this, because everything doesn't depend on that. You've got to look at the entire case. But in a case like this, the entire case really is whether you believe she said to Rusty that night he's on the burn pile, what that meant. Did that mean he's starting a burn pile and maybe it means nothing? Or did that mean that she'd already killed him and put his body on the burn pile? Well, Marjorie Smith, that's where everyone should start. Because you have to start there if you're doing it correctly. That's where I start at, because they're presumed innocent. But it's very difficult. It's very hard to do that, though, sometimes, because a lot of people start at guilty. The natural inclination when you see someone accused, that's why they don't like to put people out there in handcuffs. That's why it's so important, is you have to view them as innocent. So you have to view them, and that's what makes our criminal justice system unique, is that the requirement of the jury to view that person as innocent and having to prove nothing, and that the burden is over there on the state. And that's why, again, every tie break, everything we don't know, that's why I've been saying from the beginning, there's our personal beliefs that we think she was involved. There's the theory I laid out and said, this is how I think it could have went down. And then there's what actually was presented in the courtroom, and applying the presumption of innocence. Was she guilty? And Hannah B says Boone should have gotten first degree premeditated. There's a case that could be made there, and that comes from those text messages, because those text messages, I think, very well prove that she might have been planning this and, set that whole thing up to get him in the suitcase and then zipped his ass up, left him in there. I mean, what a heinous case. But rest assured, she's not ever going to get out of prison, so don't worry about that. She, first degree or not, she's going to get the same sentence. Although I think first degree in Florida would have gotten her the death penalty. But regardless, I think spending the rest of your life in the Florida penitentiary system or correctional system is probably worse than death. It's a slow death with no air conditioning, no heat. It's almost torturous conditions down there. She'll certainly be suffering more than George ever did, because she'll have 30 years of suffering in the Florida penitentiary system. All right, so our poll right now says less than 6 hours. Well, that's already been defeated. So right now, we're just going to throw the 24 into the 6 to 12 now. So we have roughly 63% out there believe that in 6 to 12 hours, so sometime in the next two, because about 4 o'clock, we will have been going. Well, let's see here. They will have been going, I guess, if you take lunch into account and you go, they got there at 9. So that would be 7 hours minus lunch. They've been going 6 hours yesterday. So we're about 8 hours. So sometime in the next 4 hours, it will be expected a verdict will happen. Now, we know they're quitting early today at 4 o'clock due to Halloween. And that's when we're going to quit, because I've got Halloween to do too. So if a verdict doesn't come out in the next 12 minutes, then we know we'll be back tomorrow. Mally Swift just became a member. Congratulations, Mally Swift, and thank you for becoming a member. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Welcome. So, I found those videos to be heartbreaking. Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I knew she was getting convicted, and I was not shocked at how quick it happened the moment the state played those 2 hours. And that was a miscalculation of the defense in a sense, because I think that was where the defense had the way putting on the abuse excuse defense, and then understanding that all of that got to come in. And that was devastating. And to me, I went from thinking of him as an abuser to saying she was the principal abuser. He was reacting to how she treated him. Now, he was a drunk that was probably difficult to live with. And then you listen to the fact that her ex-husband said she was abusive verbally and whatnot. And it gave you a totally different perspective on things. And then you get to see that if this woman would stand up there and speak to him the way she did, you just saw it as if it was just a culmination of events. And then you take into the fact that she's telling his daughter, I'm going to get rid of him and life will be better. I mean, it is no wonder that they convicted her as quick as they did. Listen, I agree with you, Maria. I absolutely agree. I think that is that he is. I think this is a package deal here, whether Melody admits it or not in her conversations with Ruffy. But we'll see what happens. So we've got about 10 minutes left, guys. I don't think we're going to get a verdict today. I think we're going to be back tomorrow on Verdict Watch, and I think it's going to be interesting. So I don't know. I'm going to do it. We'll do a quick poll here. We're going to end the poll we got, and we're going to do a very quick little poll. Hold on one second. And with it being Halloween night tonight, my wife loves Halloween. My son, my 5-year-old, loves Halloween. I won't be doing anything with this case or the channel. So I'm happy a verdict's not coming today, because I knew I was going to be turning this camera off probably about 4:30. So it's perfect that they're ending at 4, and focus completely on taking Spider-Man out to go get his Halloween candy. And then we got our little pumpkin over here too as well. I believe he's dressing up like a pumpkin. Now, that's our newborn. So we'll be taking him out and getting some candy. Let's see here, Sidney Braddock. I think anything that happened to Boone was in self-defense. He had to preserve his life. I wish he had left her. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Maui Swiss says she's on the fence. And I will, Marjorie, I will, because I'll tell you, I'm actually getting a chance to do it all over again, because I had my 2 oldest sons are 18 going on 19 and 15. So I was much younger when I had them, and all of this was in a blur when I was young, trying to, go through all these days. Now I'm kind of getting another crack at it, and I'm enjoying it much more, and savoring it, because it does go fast. All of a sudden, they're taller than you and heading off to college. So let's see here. So Sophie Newman says, I'm still thinking it'll be a hung jury. Very well could be. It very well could be, because like I said, it sounds like there is some division back there in that jury room, and that there is some debate. And listen, I don't think those recordings settle anything for wherever anyone's at. If there's somebody back there that really thinks she's innocent, they could use that tape and make their case. If there's somebody back there that really thinks she's guilty and doesn't want to give it up, that they could use that tape and make that case. Oh, it does go fast. It really does. Like I said, I'm appreciating that right now. I've got, like I said, I've got a freshman in high school and a freshman in college, and I can't even believe that they're there. And then I'm thinking to myself, I've got my 2 youngins now that are, I'm like, how fast will it be? That's what I keep telling my wife. We've got to enjoy it. Yep. Well, that's exactly right, Marmalade. Yep, absolutely. That's why I told my wife. I said, we have all this chaos in our house right now, and everything's going on, and they need you. Just like, as you can see, they're always needing something, and it's like one day you're needed, but now my oldest, he doesn't need me as much. He's off to college. He's I hear from him. We talk a couple times a week, check in, but certainly not needed like my 5-year-old needs me, and of course my newborn needs me all the time whenever he's not sleeping, but he likes to sleep a lot right now. And so you got to enjoy while you're needed, and then my 15-year-old needs me when he's not at football or doing his things. So oh wow, Mary Swift. So yeah, 29. Yeah, I can't imagine when they get to 29. That's got to be, just looking at that, thinking how 29 years went that fast. Cindy Braddock says my oldest is 37. Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, listen, you got to enjoy it, because I'm sure the older they get. That's what I told my son. I said, the older you get, the less the contacts come into play, because you're going to be busy with your life. If things go right, they're going to be busy with their life, their family. So it's like when he was getting ready to leave for college, I said, enjoy this time, because you're in the routine right now, but you will not be in a routine anymore. And if things go correct, you will come back and you'll be in the routine while you're on break. But if everything goes the way it's supposed to be, you're going to get less and less and less involved in the daily routine. So I said, enjoy it while you can, and you're here getting to go through this, because it's going to go fast. Yeah, Beth says her son's 19. Yeah, it definitely goes fast. It definitely goes fast. But okay, so it looks like, are we to assume that that we're dark here? Let's go in here. What is going on? I don't know why it's dark. That's weird. So I don't know what's happening here, because I don't know if we're to assume that the day is over, that they just went in and shut the feed down. I guess I'll have to watch the next few minutes and see if if the feed completely cuts off. But I think this means we're not having a verdict. That's what I would take from it. So let's see here. All right. No, absolutely, Cindy. I can appreciate that in the sense of my two oldest. But now, of course, I'm getting to go through we're going to be going through the toddler years one more time. They're done for today, Donna Sloan says. Okay, excellent. Well, everyone, it's been fantastic today. I appreciate everyone talking with me, spending time with me while we're deliberating. And tomorrow we'll try to do the same. And talk and interact, and maybe we'll get a verdict. I think tomorrow is going to, my jury sense tells me we're gonna get some sort of a resolution tomorrow. We're either we're deadlocked, or we're gonna get a verdict. So I think we're gonna find out, but that's my sense. I don't think this jury probably wants to go past the weekend. Could it? It could, but we'll see. So with that said, guys, appreciate all of you. Hopefully let justice prevail, and we'll be talking soon. And there you see the live views that we're up. And Marmalade, have a good day. And all the new members that came on board today, incredible to have you in the family now, have you here talking, and we'll be talking much, much more. And I think we're getting to the size now where we can do some members, do some member stuff here. So appreciate all of you, and I'll see you in the morning. And until then, guys, let justice prevail.
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free.